The moon hung, a pale coin in a dark sky, stars scattered like spilled salt. Below, the village slept. Its breath was soft, a gentle rhythm. Houses huddled close, their windows dark, like closed eyes. A cat, sleek and black, moved through the shadows. It was the only movement. A silent hunter. The air was cool. It carried the scent of pine and damp earth. Peace was a blanket, heavy and comforting, covering everything. No one stirred. No one knew. The night held its secrets tight. Crickets sang their usual song, a monotonous, reassuring chorus. It blended with the distant sigh of the wind. Trees rustled, their leaves whispered ancient stories, stories of other nights, other silences. Raisin, a boy then, slept deeply. His dreams were simple, filled with sunlight and the taste of wild berries. He did not hear the change, the subtle shift in the night's song, the way the silence tensed, like a drawn bowstring, waiting for release. The calm was deceptive, a thin veneer over something terrible. Then, a sound, not of the night, not of nature, sharp, sudden, a crack, like wood splitting, but louder, more violent. It sliced through the quiet. The crickets stopped, the wind held its breath. Another sound followed, a shout, cut short. Fear had a voice, it was raw, it was primal. The village began to stir, not slowly, but with a jolt, like a sleeper shocked awake by a nightmare made real. The peace shattered into a million pieces. Dark figures moved, swiftly, through the familiar paths. They were shadows, but solid and deadly. They carried fire and steel. Their purpose was destruction, pure, uncomplicated. The first screams echoed, bouncing off the silent hills. The night air thickened, with smoke, with terror. The scent of pine was gone, replaced by something acrid, something burning. The black cat vanished, wise enough to disappear. The stillness was a memory, a forgotten dream. Chaos had arrived. Raisin woke, not to gentle light, but to heat and noise. The world was red, orange, flickering. His small room danced with shadows, unfamiliar, monstrous. He smelled smoke, thick, choking. It scratched at his throat, his eyes stung. He sat up, confused, heart hammering like a trapped bird. The sounds outside were a symphony of terror, shouts, cries, the clang of metal, the roar of flames. It was a language he did not understand, yet its meaning was clear. Danger. He stumbled from his bed, his feet bare on the wooden floor. The floor was warm, too warm. He went to the window, looked out. His village was an inferno. Flames licked the sky, consuming homes, his home. He saw figures, silhouettes against the fire, some running, some falling, others wielding weapons. Their movements were brutal, efficient. He felt a cold dread. It seeped into his bones, deeper than the heat of the fire. This was not a nightmare. This was real, terribly real. He thought of his parents, his sister. Their faces flashed in his mind, clear, beloved. He had to find them. He ran to the door, pulled it open. The hallway was a tunnel of smoke. Heat washed over him. A wave. He coughed. Tears streamed down his face. Not from sorrow, not yet. From the smoke, from the sting. He called out their names. His voice was small, lost in the greater noise. The noise of destruction, the noise of ending. He felt so small, so helpless. Fear was a living thing. It coiled in his stomach, tight, painful. It whispered in his ear, run, hide, survive. But another feeling fought against it. Love, desperation. He pushed forward, into the chaos. Each step was an effort, each breath a struggle. The world he knew was disappearing, turning to ash before his very eyes. He saw a neighbor's house collapse, a shower of sparks, a terrible sigh. The night was no longer tender. It was cruel. It was devouring everything he loved. The dawn came, gray, ash-filled. It revealed a landscape of ruin. What was once a village, now a graveyard of charred timbers, and silence. A different silence. Not peaceful, but heavy, laden with unspoken grief. Raisin stood amidst the devastation, his bare feet cold on the cooling embers. He was covered in soot, his clothes torn, his face streaked with tears and grime. He had found no one, only absence, only the ghosts of laughter and love. The fire had taken everything. He walked through the remains of his home, each step a memory. Here they ate, here they slept, here, his mother sang. Now only blackened stones and the smell of burnt wood. He found a small scorched doll, his sister's. He picked it up, held it tight. It was the only thing left, a fragile link to a world that was gone. The pain was a physical thing, a hollow ache in his chest. It threatened to consume him, to pull him down into the ashes, with everything else. But then, something else stirred, deep within him, beneath the pain, beneath the fear, a tiny spark, in the vast darkness. Anger, cold, hard. It was different from the heat of the fire. This was an ember that would not die. It grew slowly, fed by his loss, by his helplessness. He looked at the destruction, at the doll in his hand. He thought of the dark figures, their cruel efficiency, their faceless terror. They had done this. They had taken his world. They had to pay. He knelt, in the ashes of his life. He closed his eyes. The vow formed, not in words, not at first, but in a feeling, a certainty. It settled in his heart, heavy as a stone. Then the words came, whispered, to the silent smoking ruins, to the ghosts of his family. I will find you, he said. I will make you pay. The vow was simple, absolute. It was a promise, a scarlet vow, etched in soot and unending sorrow. It changed him in that moment. The boy was gone. Something else was taking root. Years passed, like seasons turning, slow, inevitable. Raisin walked, a solitary figure, on dusty roads, through whispering forests. He left the ashes behind, but they clung to him, an invisible shroud. The vow was his only companion. It was a constant hum. Beneath his thoughts, it drove him. It shaped him. He was no longer the boy who dreamt of sunlight. His dreams were now of shadows and the glint of steel, and faces he could not quite see, faces he hunted. He learned to survive, to find food, to find shelter. The world was a harsh teacher, but he was a determined student. He listened more than he spoke. He observed everything, the way a hawk circled, the way a wolf moved, the way shadows danced at dusk. He was searching, not just for the destroyers of his past, but for a path, a way to fulfill his vow. He heard whispers, in taverns, in markets, rumors of a master, a swordsman of incredible skill, living alone, high in the mountains, Master Juro. The name lodged in his mind. Juro, it sounded like strength, like purpose. He began to seek this master. The journey was long, arduous. He faced hunger, cold, despair. Sometimes the vow felt like a crushing weight, too heavy to bear. But then he would remember the flames, the screams, the scorched doll, and the anger would flare anew. A cold, steady flame, it pushed him onward, through doubt, through exhaustion. He had to become strong, strong enough. He carried little, a worn cloak, a small pouch of coins, the doll, always the doll, tucked safely away, a reminder, a fuel. He saw many things, the beauty of the world, the cruelty of men. He learned that loss was a common story, but his was unique. His was a fire that needed an outlet. He needed more than survival skills. He needed the art of the blade, the art of controlled destruction. The path to Master Juro was not just a physical journey. It was a journey deeper into the heart of his resolve. Section 5. Beneath the silent peak, first lessons in pain, he found Master Juro at the foot of a silent, snow-capped mountain. The master's hut was small, austere. Smoke curled from its chimney, a thin grey line against the vast sky. Juro was old, his face a map of wrinkles. His eyes, though, were sharp. They seemed to see everything. Raisin stood before him, young, determined, full of a raw, untamed energy. He stated his purpose, his voice steady despite the awe he felt. He wanted to learn. He needed to learn. To avenge. Juro listened without expression. He looked at Raisin for a long time. A silence stretched, uncomfortable. Raisin felt like an open book. His pain, his anger, his desperate need, all laid bare. Finally, Juro spoke. His voice was like stone shifting. Vengeance is a sharp stone, he said. It can cut the hand that wields it. Raisin did not waver. I understand, he replied, though perhaps he didn't. Not fully, not yet. Juro nodded slowly. Training begins at dawn. The training was brutal, relentless. Juro was an unforgiving teacher. He pushed Raisin to his limits and then beyond. There were no gentle introductions, no easing into the art. It was pain, exhaustion, repetition, endless repetition. Basic stances, basic cuts, again and again, until Raisin's muscles screamed, until his mind went numb. Juro watched, his gaze unwavering, correcting flaws with a sharp word or a sharper tap of his wooden sword. There was no praise, only correction. Raisin's hands blistered, then calloused. His body ached constantly. He fell many times. He rose many times. The vow sustained him. During the day, it was a distant fire. During the cold nights, huddled in a small cot, it burned brighter. He cleaned the master's hut, chopped wood, drew water. These tasks were also part of the training. Humility, discipline, focus. He learned that the sword was not just about strength, it was about control, about the mind, about the spirit. Juro taught without many words. His lessons were in the doing, in the enduring. Days bled into weeks, weeks into months. The mountain air was thin, cold, it sharpened the senses. Raisin's movements became more fluid, less clumsy. The wooden sword felt like an extension of his arm, not a burden. He began to understand the rhythm, the flow. Master Juro introduced new forms, more complex, more demanding. Speed was essential, but not wild speed, controlled speed. Each movement had to have a purpose, a reason, no wasted energy, no wasted thought. Juro would spar with him. The old master moved with a grace that defied his age. His wooden sword was a blur. Raisin found himself on the ground, again and again, winded, frustrated. But each fall was a lesson. Each strike from Juro taught him something, about timing, about distance, about anticipation. The blade whispers, Juro said one evening. They sat by the fire. Listen to it. It will tell you when to move, when to be still. Raisin listened, to the wind, to the crackling fire, to the silence within himself. The training was not just physical. Juro spoke of the spirit, of the mind. Anger can be a powerful current, he explained, but it can also drown you. You must build a dam, direct the flow. Raisin struggled with this. His anger was a constant companion, a burning core. He wanted to unleash it, to let it consume his enemies. But Juro taught restraint, focus, to channel that fire, to make it a tool, not a master. This was harder than any physical exercise. He learned to meditate, to quiet the storm within, to find a point of stillness, even amidst the rage. It was a slow process, fraught with setbacks. Sometimes the faces from his past would appear. The flames, the loss, the vow would surge, threatening to overwhelm him. But he would breathe, focus on Juro's teachings, on the feel of the sword in his hand. He was learning that true strength was not just about destroying, it was about control, about understanding the purpose behind the power. The purpose Juro hinted was larger than just revenge. The concept of balance became central. Juro spoke of it often. Too much speed, you lose control, he'd say. Too much force, you break your own blade. Too much anger, you lose yourself. Raisin found this balance elusive. His desire for vengeance was a powerful weight. It tipped the scales, pulled him towards a singular, consuming focus. He practiced forms for hours, pushing his body, trying to find that perfect equilibrium, where intent and action became one. Effortless, precise. He remembered his village, the peace, the harmony. It seemed a lifetime ago, a different world. He wondered if such balance was even possible for him now, with so much bitterness in his heart. Juro seemed to sense his internal turmoil. The fire that destroys can also forge, the master told him. Your pain is a powerful energy. Do not deny it, but do not let it define your every strike, your every breath. Raisin tried to understand, to forge his pain into strength, not just raw fury, but a tempered weapon. There were days of deep frustration, when the sword felt heavy, alien, when his anger felt like a wild beast, tearing at him from the inside. On those days, Juro would simply watch. He offered no comfort, no easy answers. He allowed Raisin to wrestle with his demons, to find his own way through the darkness. The path of the warrior is walked alone, Juro once said. Even with a teacher, Raisin learned that true discipline came from within, not from external commands. Slowly, a change began. The anger did not disappear, but it shifted. It became less of a blinding rage, more of a focused intensity, a cold, hard resolve. He started to see the sword not just as an instrument of revenge, but as a tool for justice, for protecting what was good. Though he wasn't sure what good was left for him, he began to find moments of calm, even in the heat of practice. A glimpse of that elusive balance. The fire was still there, but he was learning to tend it, to control its burn. The seasons turned many times on the mountain. Snows came and went. The boyish softness in Raisin's face hardened, replaced by sharp angles and a constant watchfulness in his eyes. His body was lean, corded with muscle. Scars, both visible and hidden, marked him, each one a testament to his journey, to his pain, to his perseverance. He moved with a new grace, a deadly economy of motion. The sword was no longer just a tool, it was a part of him, like a limb or a shadow. He still dreamt of the fire, of the faces of his lost family. The grief remained, a dull ache that never truly faded, but it no longer crippled him. It was woven into the fabric of his being, a dark thread in a complex tapestry. He sometimes looked at the scorched doll, his sisters. It didn't ignite the same wild fury as before. Instead, a profound sadness and a renewed sense of purpose. His vow was not forgotten. It was tempered, refined, like steel in a forge. Master Juro's lessons had sunk deep, beyond the techniques of the sword. He had learned about patience, about discipline, about the quiet strength found in stillness. He understood that true power was not about aggression, but about control, over oneself, over one's emotions, over one's blade. He saw the wisdom in Juro's cryptic words. Vengeance was indeed a sharp stone, but he was learning how to hold it, without letting it destroy him from within. His internal struggle was less of a storm, more of a focused current. One evening, Juro watched him practice. As the sun dipped below the peaks, casting long shadows, Raisin moved through his forms, each strike precise, each movement flowing. There was a deadly beauty in his dance. When he finished, Juro nodded, a rare gesture. The vessel is strong, the master said, but what will it carry? Raisin understood. The training had given him the means. Now, he had to reaffirm the purpose. The vow was still there, but it felt different. Less about pure destruction, more about a reckoning, a balancing of scales. The day came when Master Juro said, "There is nothing more I can teach you." The words hung in the crisp mountain air. Raisin felt a strange mix of emotions, a sense of accomplishment, a touch of sadness at leaving this harsh, transformative place, and a surge of anticipation. The time was near. He bowed low to his master, a gesture of profound respect and gratitude. Juro simply inclined his head. His eyes held a flicker of something unreadable. Pride, concern, perhaps both. Raisin prepared to leave the mountain. He packed his few belongings, the worn cloak, the mended clothes, the small scorched doll. He looked different, he felt different. The boy who had stumbled out of the ashes of his village was gone. In his place stood a warrior, forged in pain, tempered by discipline, driven by a vow that had become a part of his soul. His gaze was steady, his resolve unshakable. He was ready for whatever lay ahead. The path of his vengeance was now clear. As he descended the mountain path, the sun began to rise, painting the sky in hues of orange and crimson. A crimson dawn, it felt symbolic. The end of one chapter, the beginning of another. The world below looked vast, unknown, but he didn't fear it. He carried his training, his skills, his sharpened purpose. The loss was still with him, a permanent shadow, but it no longer defined him in the same way. It fueled him, it guided him, but it did not own him. His scarlet vow remained, a burning ember in his heart. But it was no longer just a cry of rage. It was a promise of justice, a commitment to face the darkness that had shattered his world. He walked with a steady pace, each step deliberate, purposeful. The night of Crimson Ash had birthed a warrior. Now that warrior walked towards his destiny. The journey would be perilous, the outcome uncertain. But Raisin was prepared, his training was complete, his spirit steeled. The hunt was about to begin.